Out of nowhere, from left field, here come the Vegas Golden Knights to land Noah Hanifin. No one really saw this coming until late this afternoon. I'm recording this on Wednesday night. Late this afternoon, the machinations started machinating, and we got some little tremors that the Vegas Golden Knights were in on Noah Hanifin. And then later in the evening, towards the night, we got official word, it's done. The trade call is in. Noah Hanifin is going to the Vegas Golden Knights. And then it wasn't official. And then we just waited for the actual details. And then finally, now, middle of the night on Wednesday, we get official word and all of the trade details that Vegas got Noah Hanifin from Calgary. And the lesson that we need to learn here is if there is a star player available, Vegas will go after them, and they usually will land them. So here are the full details of the Hanifin trade to Vegas. Going to Las Vegas, Noah Hanifin and Mikhail Vorobiev. Noah Hanifin is 75% retained. The Philadelphia Flyers swoop in. They get a 2024 fifth-round pick from Vegas for retaining 25% of Noah Hanifin's salary. And to the Calgary Flames, Daniil Miramanov and a 2025 first-round pick that is top 10 protected. If it lands within the top 10, then Calgary will get Vegas's 2026 first-round pick, and they also get a 2025 third-round pick. That is also conditional, and the conditions on that pick are that Vegas must advance to the second round, and if they do advance to the second round, the third-round pick becomes a second-round pick. So what we have here is Miramanov, a first and a second, because I think we can all assume at this point that Vegas will advance to the second round, and the Stanley Cup goes through Las Vegas. They won it last year. It is theirs. They own it. I don't care what the standings say. I don't care where they sit right now. When they get to the playoffs, they are the favorites, and the Stanley Cup goes through them. I'm going to read their top 6 defensemen and tell me this isn't the most scary decor in the National Hockey League. Hanifin, Petro, McNabb, Theodore. Alec Martinez is now on injured reserve to make room for Noah Hanifin. So that other spot's going to be like Nick Hague or Ben Hutton or Tobias Bjornfort. And then Zach Whitecloud is going to be the last pairing defenseman there. That is some big, hefty men playing on the back end. And there's a lot of salt in the water right now. Which water's salty? The ocean? Is it the Black Sea? Which is the most salty body of water? Because that is NHL fans in the Pacific Division right now. Because there's a lot of talk about the LTIR circumvention and all that nonsense. Before I get into that, let me tell you something. Calgary Flames talk is coming up, and it's going to be done by Julian McKenzie of The Chris Johnson Show and of The Athletic, where he is the Calgary Flames beat writer. Who better to talk about the Flames than the guy who covers the Flames day in and day out? So I'm going to leave that to Julian. I'm going to just say that I'm personally disappointed in the work that Craig Conroy has done here. I think for Noah Hanifin, you need more than the first and the second round pick. You need some solidified prospects. I don't think Miramanov is that. I don't think Magic Beans are enough when you're trading away guys who are this good and relatively young and who can play top pair minutes on a very good decor. A first and a second doesn't seem like enough, but Julian's going to get into that. That's just my quick thoughts on what Calgary's done here. Plus, it's a division rival. Is there not an upcharge to trading within a division? Besides all that, speaking of division, let's get into the salt, because a lot of you Pacific Division fans are salty for no reason. All 32 teams are operating under the same darn rules. But for some reason, when Vegas decides to put somebody on LTIR and they open up a bunch of space, it's their fault that the rules have been made in this way. Hate the game, not the player. It's the reverse of that old saying of hate the player, hate the game. You got to hate the game this time, because the NHL has set up this goofy ass system where teams can take advantage of it. And the Vegas Golden Knights are just doing what they can within the rules. If they couldn't do this, they wouldn't be able to. And what I'm talking about right now is if you go to Cap Friendly and you look at the Vegas Golden Knights and you take a look at what they have on LTIR, a lot of people are upset about it because it gives them this ability to acquire a player like Noah Hanifin, and then for the playoffs, a bunch of guys are healthy again, and they're like, oh, they used all that space for free and blah, 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 blah. Right now, on their long-term injury reserve, is Mark Stone and Robin Lehner. Robin Lehner's never going to play a game again in the National Hockey League. And Mark Stone, everybody complaining about Mark Stone going on LTIR and then becoming healthy and playing in the playoffs. You guys, Vegas didn't make the playoffs in 2022. He was injured in 2022 for back surgery, and they didn't make the playoffs. He didn't get healthy for the playoffs because they weren't there. Last year, yeah, it worked out where his schedule to return landed a week before the end of the regular season. You hold him out for those extra couple games so then he can play in the playoffs. This year, though, guys, he has a lacerated spleen. His spleen is cut. I'm not a doctor, but you can't fake a lacerated spleen. I don't understand. 9 teams right now in the playoffs are using LTIR space. There's 16 total in the National Hockey League that are above the salary cap limit. Yes, 16 teams. Half of the NHL is currently using LTIR space. They are above the salary cap limit. The NHL has made a system that doesn't work. This is nonsense. The rules are goofy and they're way too complicated for anybody to understand. But when you just specifically complain about the Vegas Golden Knights having players injured and then them coming back for the playoffs, it's not a Golden Knights problem. It's an NHL problem. And I'll never stop hammering that. It's a ridiculous thing to call out a guy's lacerated spleen and say that they're cheating the system because his spleen is cut. And because he cut his spleen, they can now get Noah Hanifin and the Vegas Golden Knights are cheating. That is a ridiculous loop of logic. What you should be upset about, like I said, is the CBA and how it's written and how this is the goofiest, most nonsense salary cap that you could ever have in pro sports. That's the real problem here. And that is a thing we should all be upset about. And to go back to the on-ice stuff with the Vegas Golden Knights, I read off the D pairings before, and they've just solidified an already great part of their lineup. The defense was excellent. They play great system hockey, and they made an Anthony Mantha trade earlier. You can go watch Steve Dangle's video on that. And they have this ability to run 4 lines at all times. We've talked about this before and how playoff hockey is being able to run your 4 lines wave after wave after wave. And Vegas has that. They have so much depth in their forward group. And now they have just an unbelievable amount of depth on defense. They know they can ride Adin Hill for 16 wins in 4 rounds of playoffs. The Stanley Cup goes through Vegas. It is theirs to keep until somebody can knock them off. This team is a problem. And right now, if I'm looking at it, I don't care what the standings say. The Vegas Golden Knights are the favorites to win the Stanley Cup. For the Calgary Flames, we have Julian McKenzie, who's going to speak about what this means for them.
This trade is still pretty fresh at the time I'm recording this, so it is entirely possible that my opinions of this will change. But this is a really weird trade on the surface. A first-round pick that's actually a 2025 first-round pick, a conditional third-round pick that could turn to a second, depending on what Vegas does this year, and Daniil Miromanov. He is the most interesting part of this entire deal, considering the offensive-mindedness of his game, while also coming off significant knee surgery. Is this a guy that the Flames are really into? That's what it seems like. In a statement that Craig Conroy provided after the trade, he lauded him for his size, his skill, and what he's able to provide with that frame. Very intriguing player. But is this enough for Noah Hanifin, who has meant so much for this defense? In a span of a week, this team has offloaded Chris Tanev and Noah Hanifin. That was a whole pairing for those guys. And I know that Noah Hanifin has played up and down the lineup, and as has Chris Tanev, but those two guys have spent a lot of time together, and those guys are gone now. And Joel Hanley, Jordan Osterley, Dennis Gilbert, and now Miromanov, those guys are expected to pick up the slack in those two guys' absence. I don't know. I thought going into this deadline, Noah Hanifin would be a guy who could fetch a first-round pick this year, who could fetch a prospect. There's no significant prospects in this deal, which I think is a loss for the Flames in this count. I think for a player like Noah Hanifin, for what the Flames are trying to do, getting younger, getting good prospects, even if it wasn't going to be a higher end prospect, I think they should have gotten something there, but ultimately they did not. And it puts a lot of pressure on Miromanov to be this player that was worth the trade. Maybe he doesn't have to be the equivalent of what Noah Hanifin has been for the team, but Miromanov still has to be worth that move. And I'll say this with the 2025 first round pick. A lot of people looking at the Sean Monahan trade and the fact that the Montreal Canadiens are supposed to be taking a first round pick if they don't take a first round pick this year from the Flames, provided it ends up within the 2032 range. The Canadiens would be able to pick a first round pick next year, which is either going to be one of the Flames ones or the one they have from the Florida Panthers. You could tell this is a very elongated trade, but let me just put it to you like this. That pick that they get from Vegas, not subjected to that. So the Flames are at the very least going to have that first round pick in 2025, but should have been one from 2024. That is a big question. And up to now, we've seen reports of teams like Tampa Bay being very interested in Noah Hanifin and whether or not that might have played a role in the market being as it was. We don't have those answers to those questions. There's a lot to wonder about when it comes to Craig Conroy, but on the surface, I think when you look at the trades that have been completed by Craig Conroy from last summer to now, if you're accounting for the Tyler Toffoli trade, the Elias Lindholm trade, Nikita Zadorov, and Tanev, at least on the surface, if you're ranking them, you're a Flames fan and you're ranking them, I don't think you put this trade on the higher end of that list. But you have to wait and see what that pick turns into, what Miromanov turns into. I didn't even mention the salary retention and all this as well, with Philadelphia being involved. But yeah, there's a lot left to be wanting when it comes to this trade.
Thank you, Julian. Fantastic. Look for Julian's writing in The Athletic. Go listen to tomorrow's CJ show. It is going to be a banger. CJ has been just pumping out the tweets all day long, breaking a whole bunch of news, and he's going to say a lot of juicy stuff and go off some more machinations on the CJ show tomorrow. Edmonton Oilers fans, I am absolutely so sorry that Vegas is in your division. Same with you, Vancouver Canucks fans. But if anybody is going to just go Super Saiyan and knock off the Golden Knights, it'll be Connor McDavid. So don't get too defeated, Oilers fans. You got a puncher's chance in this too. And Vancouver, who knows if Demko just steals one. All you need to do is win 4 games. If you're a fan of a team in the Pacific Division, it's going to be a tough one, but these playoffs are going to be so much fun. That's it. That is it for me tonight. I will see you back very soon. Go listen to the Steve Dangle podcast with Sid Sixero. It is a great episode. That's it. That's all I got to say. Don't get mad at Mark Stone for having a lacerated spleen. That's a ridiculous thing to do. Good night from Toronto.